We welcome you back to this channel. This time, we will explore Encounters with Witches, where we'll hear about experiences with dark rituals performed by terrifying witches. These stories will challenge your perception of the unknown. Go ahead, turn off the lights, and let's take one more step into the world of the unknown. In the first story, we go into a mysterious forest where a curious boy witnesses a terrifying ritual that will mark him for life. What will he do when he discovers that a figure with bird-like legs leads a group of witches?
The ritual in the forest.
When I was a child, we spent summers in a small cabin by a lake in a remote forest. It was our family refuge, where my father taught me to fish while my mother prepared country lunches. The forest was a place of mystery and fantasy for me, full of tales about creatures hidden among the trees. That summer, my childhood curiosity led me beyond our usual territory. Intrigued by the whispered stories of shadowy figures roaming the forest told by locals, I ventured alone into the woods in search of adventure. It was then that I saw the first of them. She was a tall, thin figure dressed in black rags that seemed to merge with the darkness of the trees. Her long, tangled hair fell over her face, her skin was dry and cracked like the bark of an ancient tree, and her long, dirty nails suggested a forsaken humanity. I watched as she silently collected mushrooms, unaware of my presence. Intrigued, I decided to follow her unnoticed, eager to learn more about these creatures that had captivated my imagination. She led me to a hidden clearing among the trees, where several female figures gathered around an improvised altar. Flickering torches illuminated the space with a flickering, sinister light. The witches chanted in a language that resonated in my mind, although I did not understand a word. In the center of the clearing, one figure stood out among the others. She was an older witch, even more menacing in appearance than the rest. I watched with a mix of fascination and fear as the witches danced in circles around her, moving with a hypnotic cadence that mesmerized me for a moment. A sense of awe and danger overcame me when all the witches simultaneously bowed in reverence. That's when I saw it. Beneath the main witch's long black dress, I could clearly see grotesquely large, twisted bird-like legs. They were covered in dark scales and ended in sharp claws that sank into the ground of the clearing. Around her, black feathers floated in the air as if suspended by a dark and unknown magic. Fear paralyzed me. I had never seen anything like it before, something that defied all logic and understanding. The witch with bird-like legs loomed over the others, emitting a presence that seemed to alter reality itself around her. My hands trembled as I slowly backed away, feeling the forest closing in around me like a living, stalking labyrinth. The witch's laughter echoed in my ears as I ran as fast as I could, stumbling and falling in my desperate escape. I felt their presence lurking in the shadows, as if the forest itself conspired against me. Terror drove me forward, tearing my skin on branches that closed behind me. Finally, I reached the edge of the lake where my parents were quietly fishing, completely unaware of the horror I had just witnessed. Upon seeing me, my mother let out a gasp of surprise at the sight of my scratched arms and legs and my pale, terrified face. My parents surrounded me with concern, asking me what had happened. I couldn't hold back. Between sobs and broken words, I told them about the witches and the dark ritual I had witnessed. My father frowned in disbelief, while my mother hugged me tenderly, trying to calm my tremors. Together, they conducted a brief investigation around the clearing in the forest, but found nothing out of the ordinary. My parents attributed what had happened to my excited childhood imagination, fueled by stories of the forest and local tales. They urged me to forget what I had seen and promised never to leave me alone in the woods again. Although I tried to accept their explanation, the images of the witches and their ritual continued to haunt me in my nightmares for years. Now, years later, I still return to the forest in search of answers, driven by a growing obsession with the unknown. My visits are an attempt to decipher whether the witches and their ritual were real or simply a product of my childhood imagination. However, the forest seems to have changed, and I find no trace of the hidden clearings or mysterious figures.
In the second story, we hear about a young man visiting his cousin Joe and his girlfriend Julie, who hides dark secrets. Could Julie be draining Joe's life through mystical rituals? The disturbing discovery of a doll might hold the answer.
The spell.
Last summer, I went to stay with one of my cousins for a few days because I had to finish a job in the area where he lived with his girlfriend Julie. My cousin Joe had always been a lively and carefree person, but when I arrived, he seemed quiet and worn out. He didn't talk much and lacked his usual energy. His body had become very weak, almost like a skeleton. It was as if he had been sick for a long time. When I asked about it, he said he had been feeling unwell for a while, weakening more and more from within. Despite visiting doctors, they found nothing wrong with him and said he was completely healthy. I couldn't understand what was happening to him. From the first day I arrived, his girlfriend Julie gave me bad vibes. She was young and beautiful, but also very strange and mysterious. She showed no concern for Joe's health and acted completely normal, as if nothing bothered her. When I shared my concerns with Joe, he mentioned that she was also worried, but he seemed unable to see beyond his love for her. When I asked how he met Julie, he couldn't remember for some reason. Not only that, he couldn't remember how long they had been together either. Everything seemed very suspicious. Everything else in their house was strange too. There was a persistent rotten smell, as if there was a dead animal in the house all the time. They only ate meat. Julie cooked meat at every meal, but I never saw her go shopping. She would leave the house at 10 every day and come back with her hands and clothes muddy, claiming she had been in the garden, although their garden was completely dry and barren. I suspected her and tried to investigate, but for some reason, I would fall asleep right after dinner. I thought she might have cast a spell on me, as every night I slept deeply without waking up. I decided to change my strategy. That night, I pretended to eat dinner and then retired to my room. Around midnight, I heard a whispering voice coming from her storage room next to the kitchen, which piqued my curiosity, so I decided to explore. Carefully, I opened the door and was surprised to find a room filled with lit candles and aromatic herbs scattered on the floor. As I tried to make sense of what I was seeing, I heard footsteps approaching and quickly hid in the shadows. Julie appeared, dressed in robes embroidered with ancient symbols, and began chanting in an unknown language while tracing symbols in the air with a silver knife. Then, she placed gemstones around a circle drawn on the floor. I was stunned by what I witnessed, unable to understand the purpose of her nocturnal ritual. The next day, after Julie left at her usual time, I decided to investigate further. I returned to the storage room and started searching around. There, I found a very old book with strange images inside. It depicted rituals involving a naked man, a doll, and a process where the man became increasingly emaciated, similar to Joe's condition, while a figure transformed from old to young and beautiful. The book contained many other strange things. As I explored further, I noticed a doll that looked exactly like Joe, along with some of his personal belongings and a photo of him. That's when I realized Julie wasn't a normal person, but a witch who was consuming Joe's soul and body. To my horror, I also discovered another doll that looked like me, and next to it was my watch, which I had only just realized had been missing for a few days. I didn't know what to do, so I grabbed the dolls, the book, and Joe, and we left before Julie returned. I took everything to a safe place where a psychic I knew could help me understand what was going on. The psychic examined the objects and informed me that they were related to mystical practices that could have dangerous consequences. After ensuring they posed no immediate threat, the psychic decided to keep the dolls to protect me and urged me to leave. Since then, Joe has been improving day by day, but I'm still afraid. I keep receiving text messages from different numbers saying, "I'm coming for you."
Finally, We follow Olivia and her dog Tom on a walk that turns into a nightmare. When Tom runs into an abandoned house, Olivia faces a witch performing a sinister ritual. Can she escape before becoming the next victim?
The witch of my town.
My name is Olivia, and I live in a small town far from the city. It's a quiet place where everyone knows each other, and there's no hustle and bustle. Every afternoon, around 4 p.m., I take my dog Tom for a walk. I've had him since childhood, and we always follow the same route. Last week, when I went out with Tom for our walk, unfortunately, our usual route was blocked by construction. Since it was Sunday, and I had plenty of time, I took a longer path. After walking for a while, we came across a place where there was an old, abandoned house. No one goes there because there are rumors that it's haunted. I wanted to pass by that house quickly, but as we walked past, Tom suddenly stopped and started barking towards it. I tried to calm him and move away, but he wouldn't budge. It was as if he could sense or see something that I couldn't. At that moment, I was nervous because of the rumors and Tom's behavior, so I tried to push him to move away. But he darted towards the house through a broken door, and all I could do was follow him immediately. I was scared, but I entered through the rusty front door that strangely had no lock. Inside, it smelled of mold and decay. I had no idea what to expect. Carefully, I ventured further into the house, searching for Tom. Then something caught my attention. A light coming from upstairs. It was unusual for such an abandoned place to have any source of light. Intrigued, I slowly climbed the stairs, each step echoing in the silence of the decaying house. Finally, I reached a landing where a door was slightly ajar, emitting light. I peered in. The yellow light came from candles arranged in a circle in the room. Within the circle, someone was sitting with their back to me, so I couldn't clearly see their face. In the dim candlelight, I could make out that she was holding Tom, who was struggling to escape. With one hand, she held Tom down, and with the other hand, she held a knife and began reciting some kind of spell. Her nails were very long. I didn't understand what was happening, but I desperately wanted to stop her. Suddenly, with all her strength, she lowered the knife towards Tom. I couldn't bear to watch, so I closed my eyes and took a step back. In doing so, I accidentally knocked over a table behind me, causing a loud noise. The woman, or whatever she was, turned her head to look at me. It was a terrifying sight in the dimly lit room. I saw a grotesque woman with an expression of anger on her face. She stared at me and quickly stood up. I knew it was time to run, or I would be in trouble. I ran as fast as I could, knocking over a table to slow her down. It worked, and as I descended the stairs, I heard Tom's footsteps following me. Tom managed to free himself and ran by my side as we exited the house. I didn't look back until we were at a safe distance. On my way, I encountered a police patrol car. I stopped them and told them everything I had seen. They came with me to the house, but by the time we arrived, the woman had already gone. All we found were the candles and the knife. The police informed me that others had reported sightings of the alleged witch before. In the village, there have been unresolved disappearances of animals, and people invent gossip to fuel the witch's myth. Many claim to have seen a young woman dressed in black entering or leaving the house, but for some reason, no one has seen her face or can remember it. Some even say she uses blood to transform into a young woman. Whoever she is, one thing is certain. She is from our town and could be hiding among us. We could be talking to her every day without knowing it. I was lucky to save myself that day, and although I now know Tom is safe, I don't know how long the peace will last now that she has seen me and could be searching for me.
Thank you for journeying with us through the dark passages of these stories. If you enjoyed them, give us a like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss more tales of terror. Visit our channel to discover more incredible stories and let the fear continue. Remember, in the shadows, there are always more secrets to unveil. Until next time, where fear will once again be your companion.